And we're going. Fuck yeah. What's up? Evil Dojo in the house. Live once again, coming at you in 1080p. Goddamn. Bandwidth looks good right now. Hopefully it stays that way. Cutting the preview off. What do we got here? good here? Alright, welcome to Evil Dojo. Dark Mage in the house, doing some game dev. Fucking knocked my footrest to the floor. God damn it. Now I have to get down and pick it up if I want it again. Son of a bitch. Oh, that makes me mad. Oh, I'm so pissed off right now. I need to buy some fucking duct tape to fix this ghetto solution I've got for a fucking desk. God damn. I'm ready to do some coding. I'm ready to do some shit, but I got a problem. I got a serious problem I'm facing with the development of this game. And that's, how do I implement collidable elements? Like a moving wall that you can like bump into, right? Like, from a tile-based perspective, if we were to move right into a wall, typically speaking, before you execute the move, you have to first check to see if there is a wall next to you before you move into it. And if there is, then not allow that move to occur or to render the move as ineffective or something to this effect. Like, for instance, in a tile-based game, you know, turn-based, you might be moving one unit at a time. Then you'd be like, do I move into this wall? Yes or no? And if you move into the wall, then the game has to check to see if there is a wall next to you. And then when it attempts to do so, you might hear like a bump sound. And then you might get a message saying that you bumped into a wall and you can't actually move into the wall. But if there is nothing there, or if there is a tile that you can move into, then when we move into that tile, the move is successful and everything goes. So how does that translate into like a real-time game? Like a platformer? Because effectively, Skull would have platformer mechanics if we pull this off. So let's explore how I'm making a floor at the moment, right? So in the floor, it's kind of hard-coded in at the moment. I know, very bad on me. But it effectively works for the moment. So the way we're drawing the ground is a function right here. There's a difference between drawing and the effective representation of something. So, like, for instance, if the scene type is not the title, in other words, it's the gameplay scene, then we're going to draw stars in the background, then we're going to draw the ground for what it is. And let's think about this. While I drink coffee. So, and yeah, like, please, any experienced game developers who happen to be in the chat, like, hit me with some shit. I'll read it if you're on the right site. Anyone who knows about the streaming meta knows what you can and can't get away with. So please bear with me if I speak in cryptic tongue, if I speak in riddles. It's not my goal, it's just something I have to do for the moment before I navigate this infrastructure of fulfilling my destiny, making a motherfucking game. What's up, 2 viewers on Twitch? Howdy doody. Hope you are having a lovely Tuesday. Today's Monday. It's fucking Monday. We got a case of the Mondays going on here. God damn. Okay. So, draw ground, right? Like, we literally, so remember that there is a relative coordinate system that we need to be aware of. So when I'm using get screen width and screen height here, this is not going to work for the long term because we're using a camera system, so everything is relative to the camera's position. We can no longer really think in terms of width and height. We're just using these numbers for ease at the moment. So like when we're drawing it, it's relative to the position on the screen, but we also have to remember that everything is in the context of the camera. So the camera's moving around at a certain pace, right? So like on our update for gameplay scene, here's update. So the camera locks itself to the player's Y position, which allows us to jump up and down on the screen and have the camera follow us, which is pretty nice. We're not moving outside of the bounds of the screen because I'm not making something that, like, there's two different ways you can think of making like a side-scrolling game. You can have a screen and render things in such a way as for them to kind of appear out of nothingness, which is what I'm doing, and script out when things are supposed to appear based on how far into the level you might be or how many frame draws you might be into the game. Another way to do this would be to pre-instantiate all of the existing assets, right? Like actually lay them out in a particular position on the map, right? So you have a giant map, and so you can think of placing bats in certain locations, and then they just enter the screen based off of their relative position in the world, so that you don't have to worry about like spawning them more than once. But this would result in a limited number of things that we would be able to work with. So I like the idea of dynamically spawning things into existence from the get-go without having to do this kind of in-between step where we place everything in a certain location and then everything's just like, oh, we're good. It would take a lot of resources to place like 1,000 bats, for instance. Whereas it's much less expensive to spawn the bats one at a time at certain intervals or durations. So that's one of our goals, is to set up some sort of timer system so that we're consistently spawning things at a certain rate, because the player's going to need a lot of time to kill stuff. And we want to have potentially infinite bats, right? Like, we're going to swarm the player until they die. But one thing I'm thinking about is how do we like implement physical objects that the player can stand on. So that's why we were looking at how we're actually locking the player to the position that they're on. So update player movement, right here, this function. So we're kind of hard coding this in. We kind of calculate a position. And that position is bottom of screen equals get screen height. And if the player's greater than that, then we lock the player to bottom of screen minus the height of the sprite for the player, because the position of the sprite is given at the top left corner of the sprite. So you have to subtract the height of the sprite from that position in order to get the Y position for the bottom of the sprite. So this is what enables it to look like he's locked at that ground location that I'm drawing. Now I'm drawing it kind of hard-coded here. Of course, we said get screen height, right? So minus 10 is just a little bit up from there. So like that gives the appearance that the skull's kind of on top of the ground. See how it's just a little bit up. So like, for instance, we could play with that offset. For instance, yeah. Oh, yeah. So now we're like much further on the ground, right? So you could probably do this and give like some sort of illusion of a background or a landscape, right? So you could tweak this by like maybe 50. And that'll look just slightly better. But now you can't really see the knife. You know, so maybe 20 is a better number. We see how quickly I'm able to like build and like rerun the game though. That's because it's not like that big yet, but also because I'm doing everything in C++, the build system's fucking fast. So I'm able to get into this tight feedback loop of being able to quickly change something and immediately get the result without having like to wait on the build itself. You know, I can crank the makeup to like use all of the cores if I wanted to, but because I'm streaming, I'm not. So no big deal there. Let me check chats. Found your channel from the Red King video on YouTube. Oh, fucking sick, dude. I want to get back to that project. It was a challenging thing to really set off to even think about doing. And the revelation that I had about the address translation may not have been fully thought out yet. But I really, really enjoy the concept that they're going for, and I want to see like more real world implementations of it. No, I totally appreciate that. Like, I'm going to be going back and forth between checking chat, so please don't get offended if I take a minute to, like, respond to you. I respond to all chats, so long as you're not trying to troll me. Is there not some way you could do hot reloading? I'm a C dev, not a CPP dev, but I've seen some pretty cool stuff. Yes, actually, someone in raylib's Discord channel recently linked me to a library. I'm going to see if I can pull it up right now. Let's see, this might be it. I'm going to load up the Discord to see if I can pull it up real fast, because honestly, yeah, I've been talking about hot reload actually over the last couple days on Discord, and I always bring it up as something that's really exciting and useful for game developers. I first learned about it through Notch in his development videos for Minecraft. I immediately sat down and began fucking around with it in Java, and I'm probably much better now at Java than I used to be, but Java used to be my strongest language. Okay, pulling up the Discord. It was in help CPP. I'm going to take a few minutes to look for this because it was actually useful, and I will link it in the chat, and I'll post it again on Twitter. Something I should have shared already because it was actually useful. Hot reload C++. Alright, let's see. So it looks possible. I've got a couple GitHubs up, but it wasn't what I was looking for. I'm gonna have to find it later. So let's see. I'm gonna link it in the chat. Let's see. So we got hot reload there, and then there's another one here. Yeah, so I mean, there's got to be existing systems out there for hot reload, but for anyone who's not aware of what the concept means, essentially is a way to allow a running application to, on the fly, reload parts of the application that you might have changed the code for in order to, you know, see something different. So, like, what would have to happen on a technical level? So, like, in the Java universe, what happens is, at least when I was using it, I used Eclipse, and Eclipse allowed you to change which Java virtual machine that you were using to run the code, and it would give you the ability to use a particular VM that had hot code, you know, reloading, what they called code hot swap. So what this allowed you to do is, say you had like two classes, your main game and your hero class, right? let's say you're making changes to the hero class, and your game is running and it's loaded the hero class, and you've made a change to the hero like .java file. Hot reloading would allow the running application to grab the newly built hero.class file and replace the one that's in memory running with the new version instantaneously. And this has the immediate effect of having immediately observable changes in your running application, which I haven't really seen it used a lot at all outside of like game development. I can't say that I've even ever seen it used outside of game. It seems kind of dangerous on a certain level, right? Like thinking about like what you're actually doing there. But at the same time, extremely useful for tightening the feedback loop, the developer REPL for a game developer. If I would do it myself, I would dump the state of the program onto disk, then load it back into the runtime on launch. But types would be very hard to process in C++. Yeah, like in the previous implementation of this game, I had chosen to use rapid JSON in order to like script out a lot of the starting variables that you might have when the game is loaded. So one thing that would be possible would be to write code that observed changes to those files and then instantaneously reload them, so that if I have to reprocess them, like for instance on game over and then reload the game, yeah, void pointer for the win, dude. That's why I don't fuck with C++ anymore. I saw, like, I've gone through tutorials on like how to implement the features of C++ in C, and it's a fucking nightmare. It's crazy what has been built out of the language itself in order to enable things like classes. Okay, I'm getting a little sidetracked here, so let me zone back in. For those who just showed up, I'll show you where the game's at. Like, real talk, give me some comments on the music, because I have a lot of fun fucking with the music, and yeah, you know, it's one of the great joys of being a game developer is getting to participate in so many different forms of art, including music. Some people focus on one aspect of game development or another. But as a solo dev, I have dabbled in all of them. Some more longer than others, but we're talking about how do we implement like solid object collision in such a way as like currently if you run into a bat, right? The bat disappears. So that's handled in collision detection, which is handle player collision. If first of all you take two sprites, the player and the enemy, you get their destination rectangles, and you throw them into the check collision rex function. This returns true or false. If it's true, it means that there was a collision, and if it was an enemy, we mark the enemy for deletion, and we subtract 1 from the player's HP. Straightforward, right? Now, in the game loop, update calls scene update. And update is called before or after draw. I haven't figured out what's the best way to go about doing this one. So in gameplay scene update, we move the stars and then we update the player movement. Maybe we should be doing it first before we update the player movement, because then we can attach a sprite variable, like a boolean, that we can switch on and off, so that if the player collides with something, then we don't update their movement, right? Now, here's another issue. So this kind of hard codes the Y based off of the velocity. So if they hit space, we set their acceleration to something that, yeah, actually I don't think we need to set that, because their acceleration's constant with the gravity. Oh no, we do need to set that, but oh, it's incremented by gravity. Is that right? I want to see what the player's gravity is. Or what their AY is, rather. All right. That's a long fucking debug panel string. Goddamn. Oh, the player velocity is like absurd. That seems wrong. Why is it going up so high? Oh. So we're constantly increasing it by the acceleration. But the acceleration X shouldn't be anything. So wait, what's the okay, so it's velocity and acceleration are vectors. let's make sure we initialize those, because I think those might be being run up by garbage. Oops. Okay. So the Y velocity shouldn't be that high though. So we really shouldn't be increasing the VY as much as we are, but the acceleration shouldn't be going up like that either. Because we see now it's getting into the pedantics, right? Like more of a game engine back end kind of front end. Good lord, my rhetoric ability is near 0. Oh yeah, no. That's why I think it's important that the music be listenable, because, well, I'm able to, I actually disabled sound effects for the firing of the knife and the hitting of the enemy for a moment. Like, I'll turn those on so you can see what that's like. Because I don't have a plan for what those sound effects are actually going to sound like yet. But, like, I just made them piano notes, and I just realized that I need to clean up the sound file, too, even if I were going to use them. But I put them in there just to have something in there for a moment, right? The nice thing is you can comment these things on or off. So, as you can see, we have sound effect capability, and I have commented those out because I found them a little bit more annoying than helpful. But I actually think the track is kind of sick, so I have a lot of good sick tracks like that that can be used as background music. If you find me actually playing a lot of them during debugging and testing, and you actually enjoy anything, let me know. I have a whole ass SoundCloud. This one's not up on there though because I'm holding on to it, but I've been playing around in Cord Gadget, and I have a lot of fun fucking around making stuff. So let's see. I'm gonna check something else, and then we're going to continue discussion about how we can implement this physical, like, fucking physical contact that we're trying to achieve, right? So, like, we're talking about updating the player collision before the player movement, right? So if we update here, and our gameplay scene has its own update, I don't think it should be increment AY, right? It should be actually set AY. So we're talking about pedantic details. Oh shit. I guess we do have to increment it by gravity every time, don't we? Yeah, because acceleration is a constant force. So, like, because we have the ground, in order for this to be, quote, proper gravity, I would actually have to process a normal vector against the velocity vector that they're generating, right? Like, it's because the Earth is far denser than the gravity. Well, because, yeah, well, first of all, because Earth is far denser than we are, we don't fall through the Earth, right? Because if you took away all of the ground to the core of the Earth, we would fall to the core. And the only reason we don't fall through the core is because it's more dense than we are. And if you turn that into a black hole, we would just fall forever, right? And we'd be constantly getting faster. So the Y gets constantly updated. Maybe we only want to update it. Because this would set it twice. But if we're able to do a check beforehand, this should result in the same behavior. All right. So that works. So we're trying to talk about how to implement physical, like, ground contact, right? Not just that, but also on the sides. So this code right here prevents the player from moving off screen. So update does update player movement and then handle player collision. But if we handle player collision first, we can set something on the player so that when we handle input, because really it's handle input that's doing a lot of this work. So if key left and key right, right? So like let's think about this. So this is very similar to how we would like increment by Vx. So instead of setting X to a hard-coded move speed, we could simply do the movement update in the sprite entirely. But we want to be able to check if they're moving beyond a certain location, right? Because here we're hard setting it. And in the update player movement, like handle input calls scene handle input. So handle input occurs before everything else. So by the time we're checking to see if they've moved off screen, they've already moved off screen. So update adjusts their position. And actually, we would probably want it to happen before the draw. Update adjusts their position so that if they've moved off screen, like less than 0 or their width, or rather the screen width minus the sprite width, then we update their X position to be locked at wherever it was they were trying to move off of. In a similar way, if they've collided with a with an object, in particular a pipe, that's my pipe at the moment. It's just literally a fucking gray square. If we collide with that thing, we want the skull to be stuck or locked at that location. Now, here's the problem here. The pipe is moving to the right. So if the player gets hit by that or pushes into it, now I think about it, you know, in Flappy Bird, that was fucking game over. Right? There was no physical contact in Flappy Bird. Maybe I wasn't thinking about this correctly. But better yet, maybe we do need some ground stuff that you can land on as you're hopping higher and higher, right? Maybe like a red brick. All right, so there's our red brick. Let's put it in. That's what she said. Oh, yeah. There's our red brick in our textures file. Entity ID spawn brick or red brick All right. Alright, so there's our red brick type. We have the ability to spawn a red brick now. So we need to wire it to a button so that it does spawn. Or we want to hardcode spawn it in our init. Wow, first day back and already got 5 viewers on Twitch. Fucking awesome. Alright, so we spawn a bat up here just by default. But we want to spawn a red brick. But I want it higher up. Minus. Oh, no, we want it higher. How about we do 0? Space isn't working now. What the fuck? Because it's lower than, whoops, uh-oh, uh-oh, I broke something. Yeah, something's broke. I somehow move like I'm locking the skull too far to the ground. Made too many changes too rapidly. Oh, how embarrassing. But the bottom of the sprite is lower than bottom of the screen. So oh, it's because we moved this into the else. Oh, yeah. So really, this would happen like in the player update. Like, let's make sure we fix that, and then we'll move things around. Okay, that's fixed. Commit that shit before I forget. God damn. All right. Pipes and bricks. Get your fix. So we're talking about properly implementing physical collision detection in a way that you collide with an object that's stationary and it doesn't push you around, but like this would allow us to effectively have platformer mechanics. So in the sprite update, we increment the velocity by the acceleration. We don't necessarily need to update the origin, do we? Okay. So, but the moment we're kind of like hard coding the movement of the position outside of the update because I was stupid. and I didn't put it here right away. So if we can update in this fashion, then we'll be able to separate out some of the code and make it a little bit cleaner and easier to read. And this will also allow us to see when we need to actually mark that we don't want to update the position because it ran into an object. Oh yeah, for sure, Griet. Like, that's a huge aspect. Like, a long time ago, someone who used to pay me to do game development was really big on Angry Birds for one reason in particular among all others. It wasn't the gameplay, it wasn't the graphics, it wasn't the fact that it was a easy to play game on a mobile phone. It was the sound effects. She was convinced that the sound effects are what drove people to play the game more than anything else. Part of the feedback loop that you get into is this idea that you have feedback, literal feedback, physical feedback, something that indicates a response to an action that you've taken in the game. This feedback loop instantiates essentially the Skinner box that drives people to play your game. So sound is a big deal, right? And I have enough fun, literal fun, in the same way that I make games or work on code and stuff. And I have the same amount of fun when I make music. So I would never put anything in my games that I myself couldn't listen to. And if I can't listen to it, nobody else can. Yeah, dude, we could talk for hours about Super Nintendo game soundtracks alone, right? Not even counting the other consoles. But just Super Nintendo alone had not only such a huge library of games that were great, but the soundtracks for these games were in many cases fucking amazing, even on the hardware itself. I used to load up Super Metroid, and I still like doing this. I like loading up Super Metroid, getting to the beginning of Brinstar, and then just leaving the game on and just listening to the background music on loop because it's that good. Right? I know I'm spitting some real truth here. I learned the other day that Asmongold has not beaten Super Metroid. He has not beaten Chrono Trigger. And there's one other critical game, I think Secret of Mana, that he has also not beaten. And these are games that I've completed countless times at this point. And they are in the very core of my soul as a human being. Which is why I make games now, because of games like that. So, what happens when we have the proper update here, right? We now have to take a look at gameplay because we're not doing it right here anymore. So, the update, right, that occurs over here, occurs over here. So, we need to comment this one out. And then these will be handled probably in the same way. We're going between 4, 5, 6 viewers every couple minutes. That's pretty great. I don't mind if people bounce in and out. You know, it's middle of the day, you got shit to do. But, you know, if you got projects and you want to work alongside me. You know, part of me doing this is that I'm trying to actually get stuff done and kind of provide some documentation as well as accountability to myself, while also trying to build a little bit of an audience and encouragement. But I also want to encourage other people to do the same thing. You know, I want people to see what I'm doing, get some ideas for how they might be able to build a game, and then go out and do it. I think we should all do this together. So when we update the player movement, and we update enemy movement, so we no longer have to call the set X here because we're updating correctly. Assuming that, okay, no, this should be correct. So let's test it out. Okay. Everything still works. Let's go ahead and see. This would be a proper commit because it's like super tiny, very specific. You know, a very, very small number of lines that you actually insert and delete. This is proper. This is really the cleanest change anyone should be hoping to make in any code base at any given point. It's a very big mistake to try and run through and make too many changes. Moving fast can get you into trouble quickly. So, we're talking about properly implementing a physical object that we can jump onto, right? So, part of us doing that was moving the, making sure that the update position code is correct. So, now that we've got that working, handle off screen tackles the problem when anything that can move off screen does, and we want to remove it from memory. So if the player collides with anything, we have a function, handle player collision. It goes through the list of sprites or entities, yeah, basically sprites that we have, and for the different cases, for these different cases that we're handling, what different things that happen depending on what we collide into. If the player collides into a knife, we want to catch the knife, which involves deleting the knife and then incrementing our catches. If we collide with an enemy, we want to delete that enemy, subtract 1 from the player's HP, and increment the number of enemies killed. We have not yet handled pipe base because I realized after the fact that this is going to be something that totally kills the player. And if the player has a red brick that they can jump onto, I believe this is handled in the update, right? Now, if you jump up into it, do you want to pass through it? Maybe we do. Maybe we want to only be able to jump on top. So in handle collision, what if we change things around? Is that going to affect anything currently? It does a little bit. So order does matter. I say this because previously we had this interesting behavior. Well, actually, it's not working anymore. So maybe order doesn't matter as much right now. But handle player collision would have to mark the player as do not update, or rather skip update. Or set do not update, or something to this effect. So really, when we do handle input, instead of hard moving by move speed, we would want to player set VX to 1.0F. And if the player's not flipped, we flip him. If so actually that'd be negative. Here we would want this to be positive. If key left is down, we set the VX to -1, and if it's not, we set it to 0. Actually, we should say this is negative new move speed. Else, we could be very specific. Not is key down, left. So So hopefully this achieves the same effect. Okay, so player's not updating. Oh, that's because of the position, right? Yeah. So actually I want to temporarily increase the gravity. Or lessen it, rather. So it's not updating player, it looks like. Oh, I guess. Oh, we got it right. Hold on. Oh. That's interesting that it won't go left. That's weird. Now this is weird. What's going on here? Oh. Yeah, this is probably conflicting. There we go. It's a bit of a jitter at first. Let's see. Float. Okay. Wow, no dropped frames this whole time. Fucking amazing. We've got some new subs out of this too. Fuck yeah. Sorry. I'm looking at the other chat now. I mean, people can see this, right? Yeah. Y'all can see this. Okay. Oh, we've actually gotten some stuff done, and we've a little bit of stuff done. We haven't it's all good. Hell yeah. Damn, I'm out of coffee. Might almost be a time to take a break, get some lunch. So there is a bit of a jitter in the jump. Oh, it's probably because we're setting AY like right here. Yeah. There's still a bit of a jitter. So I guess we need to temporarily set that to 0. Way too high. I still got that jitter. That jitter wasn't there previously. Yeah, that's way too high. So, one thing that I was exploring for the problem of like landing on this object, right? I think we're going to do it like Castlevania style, where if you jump up from below the object and then you land on it from up top, you'll stand on that object, right? So we need to like disable the update for the player if they try moving into the red brick as a test. as a test to see that we can't actually move into it, right? I think this might be the simplest case that we can handle. So now we can turn the update mechanism on and off, right? So if sprite type red brick, player set do update to false. So this gets called here. So then when we go to update player movement, the update would occur here. Which, if they bump into it, this would temporarily disable gravity, or the effects of it rather. Then we handle this stuff, and let's see what happens right now. Oh, now we can't move at all. Nice. But we landed. This is a fucking good start. So update player movement would do all this stuff, and then would it have any effect to turn on set do update after all this? Because the collision would turn it off, then this code would run, then the true would update, and then if we were still colliding with it, instead of colliding with like the whole box, if you collide with it, we can check to see if you collide with just the top part of it. So like create a second thin rectangle area at the top of the brick Okay, so we create a brick. It's not the actual destination, is it? Okay, so that actually returns the whole rectangle. Okay. So we have a copy of the rectangle. We change the height to 1. And then we do another check collision. And if we collide with that, then we set do update to false. Also check the bottom of the all right. Okay, that didn't work. Damn. I guess there's not enough of a space for the collision to detect it correctly because of how fast everything is moving. Okay. It's almost. Oh, wait. Kind of in the right direction. curious. Fuck, I gotta piss. Shit. All right. I think it's now a good time to take a short break. Hope everyone has enjoyed. This is Evil Dojo signing off.